Hi there, my name is Jeff Dixon, and this is the Elvis Conspiracy. This particular episode, Return to Sender. See, we're looking at the life and the death, and then perhaps the life of Elvis Presley. We're spending a lot of time in this series, in the multiple episodes, giving you evidence that people have used, people have shared, people have produced that seem to tilt a theory that says Elvis Presley did not die when it was reported that he died. In other words, Elvis lives. And why people think that? Now, we made you a promise as we started the series. One day, someday, we'll get to the end of that particular promise and make it come full circle, where we'll give you what we actually think about it. And we'll also share with you a new theory that is uniquely ours about what really happened to Elvis and the possibility that he might be alive. But then we're also going to make some spiritual application and some spiritual points about that. So if you're a follower of Jesus out there and you say, I don't want to hear about Elvis Presley, then you don't have to watch. By the same token, if you go back and watch the episodes, we're building quite an amazing case that, believe it or not, we're going to get to a place where we tie it all up and land the plane. And you're going to be in awe. And then you're going to send me an email and say, thank you, Jeff. Thanks very much. Just like Elvis would. Anyway, today we're going to go back to the day that he died. And we're actually going to go back to the day he died, but we're going to start in the dark of the night as Elvis moved through what was supposedly the last night of his life. We talked about some of these things once before. We're going to dig in just a little bit deeper, and we're actually going to show you a piece of evidence that becomes important if you're trying to put together a conspiracy theory and try to argue for the fact that Elvis's death did not take place like some said it did. The night that he died, Elvis did something that he would have done, would have needed to do. He went to the dentist. Elvis Presley just couldn't walk into a dentist's office, so that night he had set up an appointment where he had gone and left Graceland and went to the dentist. Now, this is important simply because there's a whole band of conspiracy theorists out there that say Elvis Presley let the pressure of celebrity and the problems of life and the weight and the drug use get to himself to the point where he committed suicide. And here's what I want you to know, that anybody with half a lick of common sense can blow up the suicide theory with the simple statement, then why did he go to the dentist first? Because nobody would go to the dentist to commit suicide. It makes no sense. Nobody likes the dentist that much. Even dentists don't like themselves that much. And so they wouldn't go. It wouldn't happen. And so you can take that suicide theory of Elvis Presley and just kind of drop kick it right over the gates of Graceland, never to be heard from again. Elvis went to the dentist that night. It's nonsense to think that he committed suicide. Elvis returned to Graceland that night. According to all reports, he was full of good cheer. He and a small group returned. They talked. He played the piano and he sang. They sang songs, gospel songs. Not Elvis's songs, but gospel songs that he loved, that he grew up with, that were a part of his life. He sang other people's songs, but he didn't sing his own songs because why would Elvis want to hear himself in concert? Shortly before dawn, Elvis, still the night owl that he was, wanted to play racquetball, a game that it would include his girlfriend at the time, Ginger Alden, and Billy and Joe Smith. Billy and Joe, good friends of Elvis and family, and according to all accounts, Elvis was having a great time laughing while they played on the racquetball court. If you go to Graceland today, you can't see that racquetball court anymore. It's been converted into something else. If you were one of the early attenders of Graceland when it opened up, you could actually walk onto that racquetball court and see the place and the piano as it was laid out in that area where Elvis played music and then racquetball on his last day, according to reports. After racquetball, Elvis and Ginger retired to his bedroom to watch TV and read. And we've talked about this before, and we've actually showed you the layout at Graceland, how this really was really bigger than most apartments, and it was an elaborate setup. It encompassed most of that upper floor of Graceland with some space for some other bedrooms and some bathrooms and back hallways and stairways and things like that. It is now about 6 a.m. Ginger would fall asleep sometime after. Elvis gets up and goes into the bathroom, which is a large bathroom lounge with its own back entrance. According to reports and according to medical reports that have been released, I'll pause for just a minute. In a previous episode, you can go back and listen to that. The official death report for Elvis Presley has been put under lock and seal and will not be released for a number of years yet, at the discretion and ruling of a family where the judge has put a censorship order on that particular death certificate. And so we don't know what the official one says. But according to reports, around 9 a.m., it was estimated that rigor mortis must have begun to set in for a dead Elvis Presley. That would indicate that he had died soon after leaving his bedroom for the bathroom. So if he walked into the bathroom, died there in that lounge area, rigor mortis would have begun to set in when they found him at 9 o'clock, or 9 o'clock is when the rigor mortis would have set in, and that process would begin. Happens to people when they die all the time. Except there was a problem. While Ginger slept, apparently Elvis did not stay in the bathroom. He used the back entrance to go down the stairs. How do we know that? Again, we mentioned it once before. We take a little bit more time with it in this episode because Paul Lichter is the president of the Elvis Unique Record Club, an organization licensed by Elvis Presley Enterprises. On August 16, 1977, he sent a registered letter to Elvis. That letter arrived at Graceland. It was signed for by Elvis. And the receipt of that particular moment is now available to you to see here in this episode. Take a look at the screen. When Lichter checked with the post office to find out when was the letter signed for, it was officially logged that the letter was signed for at 9:30 a.m., which again completely blows up the 9 a.m. rigor mortis claim. And it also points out that Elvis did not seem to be in a suicidal mood. Now, that becomes important, and this gets complex, because David and Ricky Stanley had basically written books and stories about what Elvis was up to the day that he died. They didn't know where he was, they didn't know what he was wearing, and they didn't know what he was reading, and they didn't know what he was doing. And if you take a close look at their accounts of that last day of Elvis's life, none of those accounts match up, and none of those accounts account for the fact that Elvis somehow was supposed to be dead, but managed to get down the back stairs, answer the door at Graceland, sign for a registered letter that was filed with the post office, and there's a receipt that you've seen where Elvis Presley writes his name on the form that receives the letter. And so confusion and contradictions abound in the last day of Elvis's life, and yet this piece of evidence becomes yet another one that definitively says that the timeline that was officially released for the death of Elvis Presley just doesn't match up. Why? Is it about confusion and just people getting upset and losing track of time? Maybe. Is it because there's a cover-up of some type that's taking place? Maybe. But at the end of the day, the theory that Elvis would have killed himself makes no sense and holds no water. The timeline about his death is messed up tremendously. And it doesn't mean that Elvis didn't die that day. It just means that he wasn't dead by 9 a.m. with rigor mortis setting in. And if he was doing a good job of faking everybody out, because that would mean a dead Elvis was signing for a letter at 9:30. And so what really did happen to Elvis? He didn't die the way they said he did. That seems almost certain. And therein lies the problem. And there is, once again, the layers of conspiracy that continue to build. And that's what we're trying to unravel as we continue to look at the life and death and possibly life of Elvis Presley. And we'll continue that in our next episode. So stay with us.